For this week's assignment, we were to look at the Stanford Prison Experiment and read through it and just gather our thoughts on the whole process. Firstly, this I've seen this before. There was a lesson I had to do for a similar class, and I read it. I didn't read it thoroughly as thorough as this site explained, but I did have a basic understanding prior to reading all this. So first things first, this in of itself is something I don't think you could even do nowadays. It is a great thing for psychologists to do because it gives them accurate results without actually committing heinous crimes or heinous just crimes against your rights of different people. So they're not actually prisoners; they're students that enlisted in doing this, and all of this is commonly understood, at least within the first few days. And then obviously the lines kind of blurred as the experiment went on. Second thing though is all of these things that they did, even though that they aren't supposed to be acts against each of the prisoners' rights, they were pretty strong, if it was me in those situations, it definitely would have pissed me off. I couldn't do it. That's having someone being in control over me is something that I'm not a fan of. So it would, if I was in their shoes, I definitely would not agree with this or even tolerate it. The fact that they had so many people that volunteered and then got randomly assigned to either being the oppressor or the oppressed is insane, because if you did get to be the oppressed, your life was pretty much a living hell, even though it wasn't made to be that way. Another thing that I saw, or that when I was reading, was that even the person that initiated this, the doctor, he found himself falling into these roles that they had assigned to the students and the participants, which is insane, because when you're doing the experiment and you're taking all these notes and you're trying to look for the things that you've been that you created the experiment for in the first place, you don't expect to find yourself falling into the same category as the guards or the prisoners, which the doctor was more in part to being a guard than the prisoners, but he still was able to see both sides, and yet still he sided with the guards. I think that in all, having this experiment back then, you wouldn't be able to do it now. There's too many things that would pop up with problems back then. I'm not entirely certain as to when this experiment was, but I know that it was a decent while ago. Oh, here we go. In 1971. So I know that 71 was a lot more lenient on rights, especially civil rights. One of the last things I wanted to point out was that I guess there's two more things. One is the fact that the prisoner, I think it was prisoner 8612, I think. I'm not entirely certain. It was the one where they had to actually send him away because of the emotional damage that they had found he had contracted, pretty much. I think that's incredibly worrying as to the fact that, this is an experiment. This is something that it shouldn't be so serious that you're gaining these mental issues. They're obviously nowadays, mental illness is a huge factor in pretty much everyone's life. There's not one person I have met that does not have some sort of mental instability or issue that is going on in their lives, and that is affecting them in great fashion. So having done this experiment, and being within, I think it was like 48 hours, this guy is now breaking down, saying that you can't escape, that this is life. Like it's insane. Another thing is with experiment 819, with prisoner 819. 819 was the guy that he like broke down and felt sick, and then the guards got the prisoners to team up against this guy and tell him that he was a bad and all this stuff, and that made the guy want to keep going, even though he was sick and felt like very terrible. So that's again another big indication that this experiment had gotten a lot further than intended. But to close this all off, I think that this brought up a lot of great points, and I kudos to any of the participants in this experiment, because all of it was intense. But I think that looking at how these people changed, it really does give us a great look into how prisoners of like current times, or even back then, how they were being treated, how these conditions created circumstances where they felt less human, they felt more animal, which is something that throughout our society or throughout our history, we've always tried to prevent humans from feeling like they're animals, from feeling less human, which is what racism is, and all of the other things that involve hating others, racism against blacks, Hispanics, all these things where it's degradation to the people, making them feel less than human. So it's a huge thing that I think that it gives us a great view of what people are dealing with right now. But overall, incredible experiment, great idea. I don't know if it was worth it for the people that were involved, but I know that they got the results that they were looking for. And I think that I will definitely not be participating in any type of thing that in my entire life. So